also welcome our guest, Mr. Jayant Dua from Grasim. He's a chief executive from Grasim. So welcome and so delighted to have you, Mr. Jayant.
Thank you.
And with that, he's no stranger to us, Mr. Naveen Sharma from JK Lakshmi Cement. He's a whole-time director in Udipin Cement and the senior vice president there. So welcome, Mr. Naveen ji. So delighted to see you again here and so delighted to have you here. So with that, I will hand it over to Mr. Datta Salagme for taking this discussion forward. So over to you, Datta.
Thank you, Sanjeev. Am I audible?
Yeah.
Yes, please.
Okay. So welcome, Jayant. Welcome, Naveen. Delighted to have you here. My honor to have a conversation with you. Being part of Bosch, I see both sides. I come from a technology and a software company of Bosch. I also see the complex changes the industry need to undergo now to be relevant in future, to bring in huge changes to be able to deliver for the future. And it's not easy. I can see the technology can solve a lot of problems, but when you bring it into your business, there are certain constraints, there are certain contexts in which you implement solutions. So the speed of the solutions have to be calibrated. Coming to, maybe I'll start with this question is for both Naveen and Jayant. So technology is becoming a competitive edge for most industries. Now we saw software changing the face of banking, insurance, media. Now I see software changing the face of software industry itself. And software and technology is clearly becoming a competitive edge, or even very classical industries, the brick and mortar industries, when they look at competing in a connected and digital world. So you come from two companies which are quite diverse. One, textile, and cement, very basic industries. So how do you see technology charting out a roadmap for having competitive edge for both of you? Jayant, first you.
So I think that one thing clearly you need to get a little bit more reflective. I think we used to talk a lot about technology, but I think the last 8-9 months, what used to be a discussion element has actually now become an actionable element. I think the entire genre of how we used to work in the past to what we are currently working and what we are going to work in the future, I think clearly there is a differentiation there, and where technology has played a substantial role clearly. I mean, honestly, if you'd asked me a year before, would you have run the business sitting at home and being able to take large calls? The answer would have been, I can't even imagine. And today it's been close to 9 months we've been doing that. And all of us, particularly, have been running our plants to the best of our capacity utilization. But yeah, to a fair point, the plants have got manned by people, and that's why they're running. But I think to your point, clearly, I think technology has now got accelerated clearly. And I think going forward, the entire outlook of technology will undergo a change irrespective of the sector. So you had early adopters in BFSI, you had early adopters in the retail, you had early adopters in the consumer durable. You always felt that we were more data oriented in our capturing of data in the manufacturing sector of basic industries. But I think now the onus of how are we using that data, because in terms of recording devices, I think we do a great job. How do we post that is where the real focus will start emerging. So before I came onto this session in the morning, I was actually undergoing a presentation through one of the people who actually use in toxic, corrosive environment data capture. And when you come from the chemical industry, a lot of data lies in our compressors or in our pumps or in our tanks where it's corrosive material. And you sometimes feel a little shaky to connecting it to your DCS. What happens? Will it be accurate? And now you've got products which are actually saying it doesn't matter where the environment is. We can hook you up. You can do predictive. You can do health of the machinery. You can look at your sustainability aspect. You can look at your safety. I mean, I think the whole game plan has undergone a change. And now for us, I think it's now how do we adopt it very seriously? And the true art will lie in execution. Nothing changes that.
Yeah, well said, Jayant. So Naveen, for you, has COVID accelerated the digital transformation? Because if you ask nowadays, which is the biggest accelerator of digital transformation, people say it's COVID. But I think the industry was already on a journey to explore possibilities of technology to get this competitive edge. But has COVID accelerated this for your industry?
Thank you, Jayansi and Dattaji. In fact, before I go to COVID, let me give you a broader aspect of our association with NESCOM. I found over a period of time that we don't, as a human being, we don't have any limitation on imagination, but certainly we have limitation in execution. We can imagine so many things, but when we come to execution, I think our capability limits ourselves somewhere. So our association with NESCOM, or I would say the technology, I would say association with NESCOM is a extension of technology. So our association with technology has enabled us that whatever we imagine during our operations, during manufacturing of cement or I think all complete value chain, we imagine and we aspire so many things to execute, whether it can be done or not. I think technology has provided us that tool and NESCOM has facilitated that. Further, basically being a resource intensive process, if you talk about cement, I think we use our businesses totally based upon the resources. So we are in the business of processing the resources, and by processing the resources, ultimately we look for a better bottom line. So, but I think that technology is a tool which can process your resources at a at optimum level and ultimately improves your bottom line. So I think this tool is ultimately boosts your sustainability, your resource optimization, and ultimately give input to the increase of the national GDP. Now coming to the COVID time, certainly in the month of March on 22nd, 23rd, when a shutdown or a lockdown was declared in the country, I think it was a situation which means nobody was able to see that how again the process will be started. I think during that period we had number of interactions with the NESCOM, and your Center of Excellence had started first MCI during that period only. And I know that so many things were shared with the startups also, and with their motivation, we have come out successfully. And for your information, at our manufacturing units at Udaipur and other locations, so far, not a single day we have lost because of COVID issue. And people are safe and healthy. So I think credit goes to the technology to a larger extent.
That's interesting. The fact that NASCOM is having such a close dialogue with industry leaders is amazing, actually, because the value is created at the cross section of technology and business. And earlier technology was an enabler of business, but now technology itself is becoming business. So very good to see NASCOM and the industry coming together. So one scenario that I saw, especially when you look at automating processes, you call it Industry 4.0 or factories of future or digital factory or whichever the name you use. So there was a bit of a debate or the contest between where is the ROI and whether the use cases should come first or the ROI has to come first. I saw the industry was a little bit in a ROI paralysis because uh, manufacturing automation ROIs start kicking up. Only when you have a scale. When you implement across the value stream. Now, has COVID, because you have a business continuity as a challenge, not just the ROI. Has it changed the perception or has it changed the perspective in industries? Because use case comes first or the ROI comes first. This has been a debate for some time for adoption of digital technologies. So, Naveen, how does your industry perception now?
Dattaji, I think the industry was already working on these technologies, but certainly I agree with you that COVID has given impetus to that. And we have been forced to think seriously and adopt measures, which will be required for the future operations. Second thing that this COVID has broadened our thinking. Earlier affinity towards the technology was not of that degree. Today, if we talk about these areas, then certainly the people responsible to run the business or the people like shareholders who are, have invested their money in the business, they listen and they listen with patience, and I think with a broader consent that yes, we had to do and we should do. So that is one perceptual change has happened during these times.
That's interesting, really interesting.
Yeah.
Because for India to compete with other manufacturing destinations like China, etc., I think technology infusion is surely needed. So, Jayant, when you look at your business, you're dealing in textiles. Which gets the priority? Is it market-facing digital, or is it more of process digital? So, what is the priority in your industry?
I don't think so. It's a question of priority. I think there are 2-3 aspects I'd like to bring into the conversation. One is, when you look at the concept of innovation, how does technology help you in innovation through either augmented tool or machine learning or through deep data, research or whatever? I think the world is now looking for organizations which are fleet-footed on innovation. There is nothing known as a sacrosanct process left anymore. You might come from a 100-year-old industry, but there are enough opportunities for you to innovate in your processes and the way you do businesses. So I think that's clearly a point which is added. And that's not to do with, we used to talk a lot more about it in the earlier times, but I think there's been a lot more time given to it in this work from home aspect. I think the second one, which is very clearly there, is the governance which goes up when you actually are managing your organization through technology base, because then it becomes absolutely transparent. The third aspect is, which it really works out, is your safety and sustainability. And as you go forward, let me take an example which is completely devoid from any of our manufacturing sector. I was listening to a debate on mutual funds, and mutual funds as custodians of money are now looking at organizations which are more ECG or ESG dependent, which is, are taking care of sustainability and safety and other aspects. And hence some of the companies which are even available at a low valuation today are not getting invested in. So I think, and where that is coming from is actually because you now using technology, sitting on your data and being able to see in a transparent governance manner how organizations are working. So if you're asking us, do we lean towards the front end as what we call as the sales side or the logistics side, or do we lean towards back end towards we sometimes not ROI based at all. It's where the organization feels the need in the long term where the value would get generated. And sometimes it's not even a value generation. It could be pure governance, which could be leading you towards that aspect.
Yeah, so you spoke about innovation. So now you see industries coming together to co-create and innovate together. So how do you see this space developing? You know, earlier most of the industries had their own R&D, their own engineering divisions, and the innovation was self-contained. But now you're part of the innovation ecosystem. So how much of co-creation happens in a classical industry? So, for example, you've been working with NASCOM is one such initiative. So, is this getting a lot of focus now?
I think co-creation, honestly, is okay. Let me take a step back. We used to have a classical way of defining any technology project execution, be it on a database or be it a new technology. We used to say always, I remember the days when the first ERPs were getting launched, you must have organizational commitment. Has that changed today? No, it hasn't. The only thing is it has progressed forward as you moved along the curve. As Mr. Sharma was saying, we can dream, but till we don't plan and execute, actually the output doesn't come out. That was the case earlier. That continues to be the case even today. If you look at, we used to always say, let's do, the F&O. Modularity has not undergone a change, but only thing the linkages of modularity have become far more seamless, where you can say, I can do and plug and play models. You always say you are talking about startups, you can talk about partners, you can talk about collaborators, you still need those. But I think the interesting part which comes out is to the point what you talk about co-creation, where you can actually say, is it benefiting multiple of us rather than only us? And if I take that definition of co-creation, which is actually saying it's benefiting multiple partners or users, then the entire advantage of collaboration, which leads to co-creation, actually works about. Let me give you an example of something which we attempted. It was something, we are in the business of carrying risky chemicals. We carry chlorine. We also carry hydrogen, which is highly inflammable. We carry hydrochloric acid. We carry sulfuric acids and a lot of other material which are risky chemicals. Now, a lot of us focused on what happens on the road. So you created cells like automated response emergency cells. If an accident happens, how is the nearest person going to help? So one day our team was thinking about it. That's a very reactive process. How do you use proactive process to co-create along with the transporters to see that you actually try to reduce the number of accidents going place? So we found a young startup. We started creating a safety, what you call as app for any truck entering into our plant. And we started doing a checklist of that. And this is actually linked to a logistic cockpit, which is now sitting on a lot of databases to give us history and analysis, route mapping, troubled route mapping, linked to GPS, blah, 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 the whole works. Now, interestingly, when we started doing this, the first response from the logistic team was, too much time is being taken for the truck to get released to fill up material. The response from marketing team was that our customers are not getting material on time because we're spending 2 hours trying to give the truck a security clearance. And those were initial days. When we made partners with the logistic team and the sales team and the customer team, that at the end of the day, all our intent is to make sure that you get safe material to your plant and with the truck owners. Today, the system works seamlessly because we not only have created an automated checkpoint where your app looks at the safety records of the truck. Is he carrying the necessary safety equipment? Is the driver at the latest eyesight test? How valid is that? Is the truck tire fine? And everything gets done, moves into the plant, loads, goes forward. Now, what we are planning to do is how do we sync it? And that's a challenge which some of our teams are working in. You want to get into actually manless manning of our weigh bridges and other things in the plant, which is very easily doable. Now, how do we link the safety aspect of this app to all that? So that without human intervention, if a truck enters a plant, we know it's a safe truck to carry our hazardous material. Once it leaves our plant, we know that the logistic team is confident that this truck has passed our certified quality test. The marketing team can give with a degree of confidence that this truck will reach the customer at this time with the GPS allowed, and the customer knows this is a sustainable operations. So, I think the whole co-creation need not be between 1 and 2. You can actually create a complete value chain out of that.
Wonderful. I think, I'm really fascinated by the use cases that you are speaking about and the vocabulary that you are speaking about. I think this is a very good sign for Indian industry because the technology, this digital transformation of industries needs a lot of executive sponsorship. It's really fascinating that you are really pioneering this activity in your industry. Naveen, do we still have? Naveen, you're on the call, right?
Yeah.
I think the one of the challenges for the whole every industry is building competences which are necessary to be ready for the connected world or the digitally transformed industries, right? You need people who can understand data, people who understand data science, and to a certain extent, and be able to recognize the chances or the opportunities that you can actually leverage to create to technology enabling your organization with the kind of skills that you need to be able to drive digital transformation.
Dattaji, I agree that if you don't have people available within your organization who have some affinity with such kind of technologies to co-create and to implement those technologies in real sense is a difficult task. You can talk so many things about that, but in fact, the real benefit cannot be taken unless your people have some affinity with this kind of technology. So, first thing, sir, if you see the cement industry, it's a continuous process industry. And initially, when we wanted to implement initiatives related to Industry 4.0, mostly the resistance was from the side that is a concept which can be launched and can be operated well in a system which is run on assembly line. So in assembly line, Industry 4.0 I think is easy to implement and can be practiced. But a process like us, where you handle a large ton of quantity over a period, and you have continuous process and so many inputs, there if you start thinking about converting or implementing 4.0 is a difficult task. But fortunately, our units have already incubation cells. And in fact, what we do in incubation cell, we have people who have affinity with this kind of technology. And they are purely working on possibilities of implementing these technologies in the manufacturing process. And beside that, we also take students, interns from the IITs and other reputed institute of repute, and they join us for 3 months and 6 months and 1 year period. And they are also clubbed with the people who already have some knowledge and have passion to implement this technology. So I think that makes a good combination where you have young, energetic and passionate people who have dreams in their eyes and have courage to implement. So this is what we are following, and we find that now most of the units have people who wish to implement and have passion to implement these technologies.
So do you also have some formal ways of engaging the startup ecosystem?
We have, we have tied up with the NESCOM. In fact, we have signed a MOU last year with the NESCOM to have this, to provide this a formal platform so that both the startup and our people can work together. Similarly, we have MOU with Nirma University in Ahmedabad. So we are working with them. So we have these kind of setups and which provides platform to our people as well as to the startups and the students to work on these technologies.
Wonderful. I think it's really fascinating to listen to textile industry going digital, cement industry getting digital. It's an amazing story indeed. So finally, coming to your engagement with NASCOM and platforms like manufacturing innovation, what do you think about it? How is it impacting your business and how is it beneficial to you? What's your statement on this?
So it's a very innovative initiative of NESCOM COE, which offering both manufacturing industry and startups a common platform to reciprocate opportunity available with them. In fact, this initiative has injected a positive energy across the company and also among the startups. And I believe that it's a humble beginning. But the type of industry and NESCOM has associated themselves like textile and cement, because both have a great contribution both in terms of GDP and in terms of employment and in terms of productivity. Because cement is we are the second largest producer in the world of cement, and our capacity so far installed is 585 million ton. And if you compare with China, China has installed capacity of about 2,500 million ton. Ours is about 580 million ton. So I think there is a long way to go, and it's the right time that this association and these kind of activities have started. Our interest in having this association is larger. In fact, we do not only want to be benefited that Lakshmi Cement is get benefited out of this. We believe that this association should spread positive wave and positive energy across the industry. So I think the benefit will be much, much larger than what we are estimating on our capacity. So it's a wonderful, it's a good beginning. And the only example I can say that we receive a number of calls from various interested parties over a day. And whenever it comes NESCOM, I think we always wait for NESCOM's call. Love to speak to people and authorities at NESCOM. And it's very surprising that a organization work day in, day out, continuously on improvement of this technology and have established a good linkage with the industry. So thanks to the complete NESCOM team, including Sanjeev Ji, Devjani, Amit, and Amit, Borunda, and I think the complete team.
Wonderful. So that's a great reflection on the very good work done by Sanjeev and team. So Jayant, would you like to add or complement what Naveen was saying?
So one caveat, Data. One is that, while Grasim is a conglomerate, where textile is one of the business, I actually look after the chemical business. That's why my examples have been all chemical related.
Right.
So, so just a caveat over there.
And Jainji, I think chemical has more advantage because you handle so many hazardous chemicals, and technology can help to improve safety in handling these hazardous chemicals.
Absolutely. So when you keep talking,
one industry selling technology to another industry, right?
Yeah, so when you keep saying textile, I get a little worried because I don't know the T of textile. So
I'm sorry for that. Yeah.
So I thought let me put that caveat over there. So let me say, how does this entire initiative help us or help the industry and a platform? I think the first of all is that this entire thing is created to get a win-win for both the startup.
Agreed.
Because they get a horizontal replication across industry. while working with the company. So I think that's a big win. And for any young startup, when you get a company which allows you horizontal expansion capabilities, I think that's a great place to start with. I think what it does, secondly, when you start with 100 startups, you fine tune to 32, 36, etc. You actually are letting them showcase your capabilities, solutions to a particular industry. But because there are multiple industry people sitting over there, the entire trigger effect of where all its application can be replicated starts becoming the chain effect over there. I think the third one is the ability of the industry when they start getting more insights from a different perspective of a thought process. And they can actually think using their experience, can this lead to a new business model altogether? As an organization, while we work with NASSCOM extensively, I think we've got our own initial bootstrapping startup at a group level, where at an innovation cell, we are in constant touch with startups. We keep having these multiple hackathons. We keep having these multiple presentations across different sectors. So it's like a everyday work for us, literally over there, because we believe innovation, it's got to be a part of your life. And this is one of the sharpest way where you actually get into the cutting edge of either technology or thought, and it questions you. And of course, NASSCOM is always there, supportive as ever, and they create a platform with which we participate. Hopefully, our team should win something, but that's fine. It's just the pure participation which helps.
Wonderful. I would end this conversation on one last question. So what is your one statement on fast forwarding, let's say, Industry 4.0 in your industry?
I think it's one statement I would make is that it's inevitable. You really don't have a choice left anymore.
Mm-hmm. So Naveen, what is your statement? What would fast forward adoption of Industry 4.0 in your industry?
Can you, sir, repeat your question?
So what I'm saying is, what would be one big driver to fast forward Industry 4.0 in your industry?
I think it is attitude of both manufacturing industry and NASSCOM.
Okay.
Yes.
So would you
linkage continues, I think things will move in the right direction. That's very important.
Since you mentioned this, Naveen, do you have any expectation towards NASSCOM? What should NASSCOM do more to drive?
The expectation is that what is going, I think that should continue.
Good. So wonderful to have, two leaders of two diverse industries driving technology in close association with NASSCOM. I think if India has to compete in manner.
I think we lost the time.
Yeah, Datta, I think we lost you. No, so I'll take this opportunity. I think we are pretty much coming to an end of it. I think Datta was trying to wrap it up. So I'll take this opportunity to thank all three of you. This has been a wonderful journey culminating in this discussion here. And we will definitely strive harder to work with all of you to take it to next level so that it's mutually beneficial for your industry, for the startups, and taking the innovation to the next level, and India becoming a sort of Industry 4.0 hub. That's the goal that we are moving towards at NASSCOM.